Hi everyone, Ottawa West Nepean MPP Jeremy Roberts here. As we conduct pre-budget consultations, I thought it might be a good idea to go over the basics of government budgeting to make sure that we all start on the same page. To begin, what is a government budget? The budget is the most important policy document that a government releases on an annual basis. It outlines the government's priorities for the upcoming year on where they plan to spend your money, and it provides a status update on our financial situation. Like your family budget at home, a government budget requires us to make difficult decisions on what we need versus what we want. There are three ways that a government can spend money. First, we can invest it in new programs. Second, we can use it to lower taxes. Or third, we can use it to pay down the deficit and, subsequently, the debt. Like any budget, there are expenditures, the money that we spend, and revenues, the money that we bring in. The Government of Ontario currently spends $165.9 billion per year. In contrast, we are currently bringing in $150.9 billion per year in revenue. When a government spends more than we bring in, the difference is called the deficit. Our current deficit is $15 billion. Every year that we run a deficit, that money gets added on to our provincial debt. Ontario's debt is currently $323 billion. In contrast, when expenditures are less than revenues, the difference is called a surplus. When the government runs a surplus, that extra money is used to pay down our provincial debt. So where do revenues come from? Revenues in Ontario come from four sources. The first is through taxes, which include personal income tax, corporate tax, and sales tax, amongst others. This represents 68% of our revenues. The second is from transfers from the federal government. This includes things such as the health transfer and equalization payments. This represents 17.5% of our revenues. The third area is through income that comes in from a variety of different fees that the government levies, such as car registration fees and fishing licenses, to name but a few. This represents around 18% of our revenues. Lastly, we bring in revenues from different government-run businesses like the LCBO. This represents 3.5% of our revenues. Next, we can take a look at the areas on where we are spending money. The four largest areas where we are spending money start with healthcare, where we are spending 38% of our current budget. Secondly, education, 18% of our budget. Thirdly, social services. This represents 11% of our budget. And lastly, the fourth biggest area is interest on our debt. We currently pay $11 billion on interest on our debt. That's more than we spend on colleges and universities in Ontario. The other areas of spending collectively represent around 25%, the remaining quarter of our budget. Mr. Fedeli will be presenting his budget later this spring. We need to decide where we're going to spend our money and what our biggest priorities are. Do we want to invest more in healthcare? Do we want to focus on getting our deficit down? Or are there areas where we need to lower taxes on Ontario families? That's why we're interested in hearing from you. There are several different ways that you can participate. First, you can attend a local budget roundtable or town hall in your community. Second, you can write to your local MPP like me. Third, you can write directly to Minister Vic Fedeli. And fourth, you can take part in an online survey that's available at the web link written down below. We are very interested in hearing from you about the priorities that you would like to see in your Ontario budget, and I look forward to seeing the final product, a budget for Ontario and for the people.